we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today, and we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place, and we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today, and we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place, and we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise. Well, good morning this morning. Welcome, ladies. Happy Mother's Day. This is a great time to come in this morning and worship together, sing together. There's so many times in our lives as we go through and we come in on Sunday and we think, how can I sing? How can I just be joyful when all this stuff is going on? And Jesus said, peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and of love. And this morning, His Holy Spirit is in this place as we gather together. If you are a believer in Jesus and a follower of Him, then you know what His love can do. You know what prayer can do. You know that speaking with Him is something that we have the privilege of doing when we are called His children. This morning, as we continue to sing along, I just want you to remember that when all these things are going on in your life, He is still there, and He loves you so much. He sent His Son to die for you and for me. When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, I won't be shaken. I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Shame no longer has a place to hide. I am not a captive to the lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. I won't be shaken. I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. One more time. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. I'm standing in your love.
Man, you may be seated as we go to prayer. Lord, we are thankful for your great love for us, for the way you provide, the way you're with us every day, no matter what we face, no matter how much we go through. And we thank you for the fact that when we celebrate, you're right there. And when we cry, you're right there. You're a God who loves us more than we can possibly understand. We thank you for this amazing love. Lord, we want to thank you for this day and for what it brings and for our chance to worship you together. We pray that you will be with all those, everyone who still has doubts and questions. You welcome everybody, Lord. And for those who have been saints through the years, Lord, we just thank you for each and every one here, for all the parts that they play as part of your body. Even those who have not yet come to terms with you, Lord, they're a part of a family. So, Lord, we just thank you for this opportunity to worship and to thank you for all that you're doing. And we just pray you'll continue to be with this service, and we ask in your name. Amen. Well, good morning. In case you haven't heard, it's Mother's Day. We had a fountain back there, and it was allowing you to enjoy some snacks this morning. So everyone who is a mother or a mother in some form or another, we know they come in different types and categories and shapes and sizes. So whoever that is, you are welcome to go back there. If you have not had a treat back there, please make sure you get back there and have one. It'll be available for you later after the service as well. There was some nice looking fruit and some chocolate, and I think some kind of a dip also if you don't like chocolate that you can, okay, good. I see a lot of nods, like people go, yeah, I was there, I loved it. All right, good. Well, thank you for being here this morning. My name is Al, and I'm going to give you some announcements. First of all, I want to let you know that next Sunday is our annual meeting, church meeting. Next Sunday is when we will get together and we will vote on those who we have going to elect to help serve on the board, to be delegates to the various conventions and things that are coming up. So that's a very important time. We'll explain everything to you at that time, so you can come and vote then. Also, if you want to, if you don't have a chance to come and vote next Sunday, we will leave the time open that you can vote on Monday and Tuesday, or Wednesday, Wednesday. That's Monday the 15th and Wednesday the 17th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. here at the church. So if you don't get a chance to be here next Sunday, you can still do it then as well. Then the Sunday after, we will I just put a quarter in that one. Slow bat. Okay. Hello? He just had extra quarters. Do you remember when you have to do that? Put quarter? My mother-in-law told me about they bought a washer and dryer, and in order to pay for it, they would put quarters in at home. And that's how they paid for it. Isn't that something? That's really, that's crazy. Anyway, sorry. Where am I at? We're going to have a joint service with Infuse. That's going to happen on May 28th. It's going to start at 10:30, but we're going to have breakfast at 9 a.m. So people from Infuse are going to be here, and we're going to have a good time together, enjoying all of that. Giving changes people's lives. We've seen that happen so many times. Giving of your time, giving of your money, of course, and we're in the middle of a program right now to help change out these old windows. These windows have been in service for 55 years, and they need to be retired. We've got a nice window farm that they're going to go out and enjoy and live in, and they will spend the rest of their time out there. So thank you. You've been very faithful in helping us raise the money that we need to do this project. Right now, I think we are still needing $8,548 remaining, and we'd like to get this done by the end of this month, so that when the windows are installed, we can just pay it off and not have to worry about it anymore. And I know that you guys are able to do that because you've been very faithful in the past of helping us with these kind of projects. So thank you so much. And this is a great start. As you can see, we needed $28,223. So you guys are doing really well. So thank you so much for your generosity in this and in so many other things that you are involved in. So I really appreciate all of that. Okay, then. We have a way for you to connect either in person or online, or to give as well online. There's some ways right there, because we are very happy to have you as part of this church. I almost forgot. There was a daddy spider and a mommy spider having a little conversation as dad was watching a documentary on TV about the best way to catch flies and how to wrap them successfully in the most efficient way. When the mommy spider said to the daddy spider, I need to talk to you about something that's really bothering me. You know how moms are concerned about their kids. Said, so I'd really appreciate it if you could direct a couple of your eyes over here at me while I'm talking to you about this. So he did, and he said, well, what's going on, hon? And she said, well, I'm concerned about our son. I just think he's spending too much time on the web. So you're not the only ones that have that problem. There's a lot of people, even spiders, who spend, okay, well, now I want you to I'm going to give you a question for you to answer and talk to each other about. The question is, when no one is around, do you sing, dance, or both? And what song do you like to listen to in your head or otherwise when you sing, dance, or both? I'm getting a lot of blank stares here. It's like, I think you're trying to decide, if I were to do those things, would I admit them? Or do I just say no? I know. Hey, there's times when I do. I will, and I'll be honest, most of the time it's whenever I'm listening to a Christian song that I really like, and I will just, I feel like dancing. I mean, and sometimes I do a little dance because God is so good. And I just celebrate being one of his children. And I can't help it. It's just the way it is. I've driven in a car, been driving around the car, a song comes on the radio, and I just feel blessed by what God is doing in my life and all he's helping with. And I just want to get out of the car and dance. Because, I just want, So anyway, I'm going to have you stand, welcome each other, and if you want to use this as a way to say something to each other, that'd be great. So let's all stand together, welcome each other. Thank you so much. everybody. Thank you. Nope thing? Oh, there I am. Hey, everybody. Hurry up, I'm running out of quarters. The timer's going off. That's okay. Thank you so much. It's good to see everybody talking and having fun together. So nice. Well, I want to introduce you to Danielle Hardcastle. She is a missionary and student right now, so she's got quite a lot of work that she's doing, and she's going around to these churches like us and talking about her ministry and her life and the work she's doing in Croatia. So I hope you'll just give her a welcome. We thank you for being here, and I'll leave it to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, it is so good. Can you guys all hear me okay? Okay. It's so good to be here with you guys. You know, I am originally from Iowa, and so it's always nice to be back in Iowa. I'm from the complete opposite side of Iowa, over by Nebraska, but it's always nice to be back in these Iowa churches with you guys. It's so good. Like I said, my name is Danielle Hardcastle. I am a missionary with the Church of the Nazarene, and I am serving in Croatia, in the capital city of Zagreb. And if you go on to the next slide, if you're familiar with where Croatia is, maybe a little bit, it's right, and if you guys can see the red outlined country, that is Croatia. It's right across the sea to the east from Italy, and it's in the Balkan region. So Croatia is one of the countries that broke up when Yugoslavia broke up in the 90s. It's one of the countries that was formed from that. And so it's not a huge country. It's about 4 million people, and I live in Zagreb, which is 1 million. It's the capital city. And yeah, so Croatia is a very, very beautiful country. And our Church of the Nazarene, we have just one church in all of Croatia. And it's a church plant. It started as a church with Croatian people. And then in 2015, there was a huge wave of refugees that came through Croatia. And so our church slowly started to become a refugee church. And then from there, if you go on to the next slide, it slowly became an international church. And this is just a little bit about our community. We're an English-speaking community. I mean, everybody has their own languages, but we do our services in English because that's the most common language for everybody. And so for all of these refugees, we have people from Syria, from Palestine, from Israel, from Egypt, I meant, from Germany, South Africa, you know, all of these different countries and cultures are coming together, and so it's very international. This is the only church in all of Zagreb that does their services in English to kind of meet the needs of immigrants, expats, refugees, all of these people. And so I think that's kind of a cool little thing about our community. And you can see some of these pictures. We would have our services in the park. We don't have our own building right now, but we would call ourselves kind of like a nomad church because, you know, we'll figure out where we're going to meet, but we're always going to meet anyway. Today, I'd like to focus on 3 aspects of our work in Croatia. You go on to the next slide. So, like I said, we have been working with Middle Eastern refugees. And from Syria, from Iran, from Palestine. We've had people from Afghanistan come through our church, all of these different countries. And, you know, these people have come into Croatia to seek asylum. They've come because their countries are not safe. Sometimes it's because of war. We have lots of refugees who fled from war. Sometimes it's because their countries were not safe because of religious persecution. There's a lot of that. People become Christians in that country and they are forced to flee. There are people who come because of domestic violence, mothers and children who leave their country because they want to get protection in their own country. And so, it's some economic reasons. There's lots of reasons why people will leave their country from the Middle East and they'll come to Croatia. And so what that kind of looks like is, if you go back to the map for a second, what that looks like is people will leave their country. Let's just say you're coming from Syria over here. People from Syria, when they left because of the war, they will travel all the way through Turkey, and then they will board, usually they'll board these rafts. Have you guys seen the pictures or videos of these rafts that people go into Greece on? That's what they'll do, and it's very, very dangerous. A lot of these rafts sink in the sea, and many people do not make it to Greece. And so they'll go in the rafts to Greece, and then they will travel up Greece all the way through the Balkans, and eventually, and walking, camping, maybe taking a bus, eventually they'll end up in Croatia. And once they get to Croatia, some of these people will stay, and they'll try to seek asylum there, and other people will stay for a time, and then they'll move on to get to somewhere like Germany. And then they'll seek asylum in that country. And so now, our work with Middle Eastern refugees, at the time, there was so many refugees going through that journey, and the church was helping to welcome them. They were helping people with their paperwork, helping people with community, with just all these things that they would need, food, shelter, that kind of thing. Now, most of these refugees that we're working with have asylum, which is a wonderful thing. Many people waited 3 years living in a refugee camp, and now the majority of them have asylum, and now they need to start their new life in Croatia. They need to find a job, they need to find an apartment, the kids need to be in school, they need to learn a new language, they need to make new friends, all of these things, and that's a hard thing to do. Especially when you left everything you've known before, and now you need to start over and kind of establish yourself in a new country. And so what the church is doing is they're helping people now with integration, helping people learn the language. The language is Croatian, and it's not an easy language to learn. And they're helping people find jobs and get places to live, all of these things so that they can establish themselves in this new country. And one of the things we focus on with Middle Eastern refugees is something that we would call presence ministry. And what I mean is that when these refugees are going through, they're trying to get into a routine of normal life now. And now we are going to intentionally be a part of the daily. We're going to intentionally be present in their lives, to be a friend, again, to help with these things, but just to be there for the person, because the biggest thing, jobs will come, apartments will come, but the biggest thing is that you took somebody and then you took them out of their country and now away from their family, away from their friends, everything that they've known, and now they're alone. And so we want to help provide for that need. We want to be there to show that we care, to show God's love, just through getting a coffee or visiting their apartment or just sitting down to talk for a little while. Those are some of the things that we're focusing on with Middle Eastern refugees now. And I'm sure all of you guys have probably heard about the war in Ukraine. And so if you go on to the next slide, we have started work with the Ukrainian refugees. And actually, this started about 6 months ago, but the war started a little over a year ago now. And at first, we didn't work with Ukrainian refugees in Croatia. And not because we didn't want to, but because it was an amazing thing. All of the churches in Zagreb, whether they were Protestant or Catholic, even just regular people, stepped up to help Ukrainian refugees. And so churches were sponsoring groups, they were helping provide food and helping them get places to live. Even these private families were saying, I have an open room in my apartment and somebody can come stay with me. It was amazing, amazing response for the Croatian people to welcome the Ukrainian refugees. And then eventually, we heard about this group of Ukrainian refugees living in a hotel, rented out by the government, so it's a refugee camp, and they were outside of Zagreb. And because they were outside of Zagreb, they're in a smaller town called Vrbovec, and in this town, it's a little bit away from the city, and so they don't have all of the same resources that other Ukrainian refugees would have. And so when we met them, we started to do a couple different things. We would go and teach English. We go twice a week, and one of the days we have English classes. I teach English with the kids, and we have some other volunteers that teach English with the adults. And then the other days we do craft workshops and games, stuff like that with the kids, sports if it's nice outside. And honestly, this is not really so people learn English. You know, it's a great skill to have. It's very helpful. And I want people to have that skill. But the most important thing is that we wanted to go and we wanted to offer something so that we could go and we can make relationships with these people, that we can get to know them, we can get to know their stories, their families, all of these things, because Ukrainian refugees are kind of, I would say, in a unique position. Unlike Middle Eastern refugees who came to a new country and they knew that they would probably never go back to their own country. Ukrainian refugees came to Croatia and to all of these European countries with the intention, I will wait out the war and eventually I will go back to Ukraine as soon as I can. And so what you have is a lot. In this camp, we have about 45 children, and we have, I think it's something like 150 people overall living there. And all of them want to go back to Ukraine as soon as possible. And so now what you have is you have mostly moms and children who left their country, and they come to a new place, and they're waiting it out. Can you imagine the anxiety and the trauma that would bring as people are kind of just trying to stay busy while they're hearing the stories about war? Some people's houses have been destroyed in the war. All of these things. And so it's a hard thing for them just to sit down and wait. And so that's really the main reason why we're going and doing these things, because it's something to do. It's something to keep people busy. And in the midst of that, we can talk with people as best we can, because they're speaking Ukrainian and Russian, and we speak English and Croatian. And so they speak a little bit Croatian, I speak a little bit of Croatian, and we try to make it work. But, you know, this is kind of their situation. It's hard for them to be separated from their family. First, because in Ukraine, there is a draft that says that around the ages of 18 to 60, if you're a man within those ages, you can't leave Ukraine. And so almost all of these people have their family members back in Ukraine. And I don't know, have any of you guys been separated from your family for a little while? Even just living in a different state or something? Yeah, I have. Not under these circumstances, but it's hard to be away from your family. You know, I was talking to a refugee one time, and she's not Ukrainian, she's a Middle Eastern refugee. And she told me that she had left her country 7 years ago. She told me that if she knew when she left her home 7 years ago, the second she left her home, that it was the last time her family would be all together, she would have rather stayed and died in war so her family could be all together. That's the kind of toll it'll take on these people to be separated from their family, knowing that those families are living in a dangerous situation too. It's a tough thing. And the Church of the Nazarene isn't just working, like we're working with Ukrainian refugees in Zagreb, well, in Croatia. But then if you go into the next slide, we are also working with refugees at the border of Ukraine. Before I go into this, can anybody take a shot at pronouncing that name of the town? I'm hearing Przemysl, stuff like that. Okay, It's Shemesh. I didn't think any of you guys would get it, but I like to have fun with it. It doesn't look like that makes sense, but that's the Polish language for you. What can you do? So at the border of Ukraine, there's a train station in Shemesh. And this is the first place, if you're going by train, which a lot of people do, this is the first place you arrive to in Poland when you leave Ukraine. It's right close to the border. And it has been the place where I would say the vast majority of Ukrainian refugees have come through. They've come through here, or there's another border point where they would leave going if they're coming by car or walking. And so at the train station, we have had volunteers there from the first week the war has started. And what the volunteers are doing is they are going, and these trains come in, and they go and meet the trains, and they help people carry their bags. They get them to where they're going next. They give information if they need to go buy a ticket, if they need a place to sleep, they help them with that. Basically what the volunteers are doing is they're greeting people and welcoming them with compassion. I had the chance to go to Poland and work in Shemesh for a short amount of time. And it was just like about a week and a half I was there. And during that time, I don't know how many bags we carried. And these are heavy bags. We're talking definitely more than 50 pounds. I struggled a lot. But what it really is that, like I said, the majority of these refugees leaving are mothers and children. And so now, all you moms out there, can you imagine you are living in a very dangerous situation during war, and it's time to leave? You are going to pack your bags, maybe as fast as you can, throw in as many things as you can, try to get all your documents together, your passports, your ID cards, everything. Get all the clothes for your children, maybe some keepsakes from your family, all of these things. And now you need to get on a train, and you get to this new country. You don't speak the language. You maybe have a plan on where you're going next. And even if you do, you need to figure out where to go after that to get to the next point. And you're trying to wrangle 3 children while you're carrying these heavy suitcases. It's a hard thing. And I really think that this is probably one of the hardest moments in these people's life, and also one of the most vulnerable moments in these people's lives. Because this is, running from war, trying to get yourself to a safe place with your children and whatever you could carry. And so while I was in Shemesh, I had a really interesting experience there. Is anybody familiar with Romani people? These are people who are treated very different from the rest of, if they're from Croatia, if they're from Ukraine, the rest of Ukrainians. And they're people that migrated to Europe about 1,000 years ago from India. And they were traveling, and then they would settle in different countries. And if you go back, actually, you could stay there. So there's what you need to know about them practically for this story is that there's a lot of discrimination against them. There's a lot of racism, and they just are kind of pushed aside. And so while I was in Shemesh, I met a few Romani families, Ukrainian Romani families who were refugees themselves, also fleeing war. And there's one family in particular that really, really stuck out to me. It was a family of 13, all the way from a little baby to the parents. And this family, we met them the first day that they were in Poland, and they were just trying to find a place to sleep. And so there's an organization there that would take people and they would give them a place to sleep for one night. But the rule was if you had been there for one night, you could never come back again. It was one night only. And so we helped them. They went and stayed there that night. And then a few days later, we saw them again, still at the train station. And we went and talked to them a little bit. And we found out that the parents had all of the passports for all of their children, but only had copies of theirs. And so what that means is that they can't leave Poland. And after they were trying to figure it out, and after a few days of being there, and they were treated really badly while they were there. I mean, we're talking volunteers calling the children derogatory names. There's military guards who didn't want them to really be in the train station, so they stayed outside on the curb. They were treated very terribly, and they didn't have their passports to leave that situation, to go to a different country. And so eventually, they just got desperate enough to say, we're going back to Ukraine. So that evening, it was nighttime, it was a little bit cold, it was raining, and a volunteer and I had walked to the line going to Ukraine, and we ran into this family. When we found them, all 13 of them were huddled underneath a tree in the rain. All the children were crying, and they were just huddled there. And we went and talked to them, and we found out that they had been in the line to going back to Ukraine, but they had been kicked out of the line. And so we went and walked with them. We got them into the line, and we knew their situation, that they didn't have their passports, and respected their decision to go back to Ukraine. And so we walked with them in line, and they got to passport control, and we peeked in as best we could, and all we saw was the guard pointing them back to the door. Because they didn't have their passports, the parents' passports, they couldn't even get back into Ukraine. And so now, as this family walks out of passport control, all of them are crying. They have no idea what they're going to do. They have been maybe even sleeping outside for those couple days that I hadn't seen them, because they weren't at this organization. They weren't allowed to sleep in the train station. It was cold outside. They were, again, treated terribly, and they had no place to go. And so that night, we walked with them. We got some glow sticks for the kids to play with, and that kind of lightened their mood a little bit. And we went and found a hotel for them to stay in, which I was told was lucky that this hotel took them, because they have tried to get Romani families into hotels previously, and they were turned away. But this hotel took them, no questions, which was a big blessing. And so that night, they slept in the hotel, and we came out the next morning, and they were already outside at the curb of the train station, and all of the children were smiling. They were waving to us when they saw us, and I couldn't help but think, what a distinct difference from the night before. When all of them were crying, all these children were wet and cold, to see them smiling and happy and excited, well rested, all it took was a little bit of kindness for that to happen. And a little bit of showing God's love to somebody. And what I didn't tell you was that evening, when we were going through the train station to get them into the hotel, we actually had a Polish military guard come up to us, and he came up to me and he grabbed the lanyard on my neck. And he started looking at it, and he was telling me that I had done the registration wrong. It had all our registration as volunteers. There was no problem with it, because earlier in the day I had befriended another military guard who was a very nice lady who wanted to help people, and she was telling me, I have no idea what this is about. And she even pulled this other guard aside and tried to talk to him. And what was really happening was he had saw us working with this Romani family, and he didn't want us to do that. And so he was coming over, I don't know whether it was to intimidate us or see if there was a problem so he could stop us, something like that. Because what they know is that when Romani people receive help, they'll go and talk to others, and then more will come. More Romani families will come, and they don't want more to come. And so they wanted to stop that immediately. Luckily, we got through that night. Nothing happened. There was no issues. We got it all worked out. But I was honestly shocked by what I had seen with this family. I had never seen anybody treated as poorly as this family was treated. I had never seen anybody treated as inhumanely as they were treated. And for people to actually want to stop the help that they were receiving. I'd never seen that before. And it bothered me so much. And I was thinking, in Croatia, we were looking for a way to get involved in our community, to be a part of compassionate ministries, farther than just working with the refugees. We wanted a way to work within our local community and to serve. And that next day, I called my colleague in Croatia, my boss. Actually, I think a lot of you guys met them, Martin and Chezi Glendenning. I just found out that they were here last year. I work with them. And I called Chezi and I said, I want us to work with Romani people. I want to see what we can do to help. Because there are lots of Romani people in Croatia as well. And their situation isn't much different. There's still a lot of discrimination, racism, they're treated poorly. And so this is what we're going to be working on when I get back to Croatia in a few weeks. And again, a little bit about Romani people. I said they migrated to Europe 1,000 years ago from India. Their culture, when they did that, was so different. Their skin color was so different than the communities they were settling in. And because of that, people pushed them away. And there's even, you look at World War II. This was one of the groups that there was a lot of genocide with. They were put into labor camps. They've really, over lots of generations, been pushed down and pushed down and pushed down. And that leads to lots of issues. It leads to drug abuse, alcohol abuse. There's a lot of domestic abuse. The child marriage is one of the issues in this society. Actually not just a lot, the majority of Romani kids are not finishing high school. And so these kind of things just lead even more into generational poverty, which also leads to other things. So one of the things that Romani people are known for, they're known for begging. And so Croatian people, not just Croatian people, but all over Europe, Europeans don't want anything to do with Romani people. And, I wish I could tell you what we would do to help this community. It's a hard thing to do, to help a community who has been in this situation for 1,000 years. That's a tough thing to do. And I honestly don't know what we're going to do yet. I wish I could be here and tell you guys exactly what we're going to do, but I don't know. And so I have some ideas. I think we might start an after-school education program to help kids stay in school, to get them excited about school. All of these things. Maybe we will do some job training. One of the problems that Romani people face is that it's hard for them to get job contracts. So they do black market work, or they just don't have a contract, and so it's hard for them to get real jobs. And then maybe we'll just try to do something that focuses on community development overall. I don't know. All I know is that this is the direction God is leading us, and that as we follow that, He's going to open the doors and provide the possibilities, help us to meet the people that we need to meet, and He'll do the work for us, and He'll show us exactly what we need to be doing in this community. And if you go on to the next slide, as I was thinking about Romani people and what we'll be doing in Croatia with Romani people, I couldn't help but think about the Samaritan woman at the well. And are you guys kind of familiar with this story? Yeah. If you're not, this is a story where Jesus was traveling, and He went into Samaria, and He met this woman at the well. And there's a few things that we know about this woman. We know that she had been with a few different guys when she really shouldn't have. We know that Jesus should not have been talking to her. We know that she was a woman. Jesus shouldn't have been talking to a woman like that. We know she was a Samaritan. Jews and Samaritans did not interact with each other. They tried to completely separate their societies. So even the fact that Jesus went into Samaria and met this woman, it went against everything that his society said he should have done. And we know that this woman probably had a really difficult life because she was pushed aside by Jewish society. She was pushed aside in her own society because of her having 5 different husbands or men that she was with. And we know that in the story where Jesus goes and meets her at the well, she had gone alone in the afternoon. When a lot of the other women would have gone in the morning, when it was cool, they would have been talking, hanging out at the same time, but she went alone in the heat in the afternoon. She was someone who was pushed aside. She was someone who was pushed aside by her own society, by Jewish society, someone people did not really want to interact with, someone who people didn't really want to associate themselves with. But the last thing that we know in this story is that Jesus went and found her. We know that Jesus intentionally went into Samaria, went to the well, and he talked to her. He wanted to find her, and he wanted to talk with her. And people were surprised when the disciples had come. They were surprised at him talking to this woman. But what I think, and how this kind of relates to working with Romani people, is I think Romani people are a group that are unseen. And what I mean by that, like, for example, I had gone and I had visited a church in Croatia. And as we were leaving, at the steps of the church, there was a Romani woman, and she was asking for money. And almost every single person in that church walked by without even looking at her. And, how odd is that to see at the steps of a church a woman asking for money, obviously in need, and being completely ignored by the people who are supposed to show everyone love. And, I don't want to bash on this church because I was only there for one Sunday. I don't know the situation. Maybe she was there every single week. Maybe they have done other things to help. I have no idea. But from my perspective, it was such an odd thing to see at the steps of a church. And so that's when I started to think about people who are unseen. And I think those are the people who God is calling us to seek out, and who God is calling us to show his love to. Because that's who Jesus went and found. And so if you go on to the next slide, there are many ways to get involved with what we're doing in Croatia. I think one of the major ways is that with unseen people, I know that they're in every single community around the world. This isn't something that's just in Croatia, and it's not something that's just with Romani people. For example, there are lots of homeless people around. And you know what most people do when they pass a homeless person asking for money? They try to kind of avert their eyes to not make eye contact, right? We don't see them. And so join us in doing a ministry like this, because like I said, it's not just in Croatia, it's here too, it's all over the place. And God is calling us to be intentional about showing these people love. And like the Romani family that I met in Poland, all it took was a little bit of kindness to completely shift one's attitude. And so join us in this. Wouldn't it be amazing to see all of these people being showed God's love by the church all over the world? We can do this together, and we can support each other in that. Another way to get involved is through prayer. Please pray for all of the refugees that we're working with. Middle Eastern and Ukrainian, both of them are in hard situations and are facing a lot of difficulties. And so please pray for them, please pray for God's guidance as we're exploring a new ministry with Romani people. Like I said, I don't know what we're going to do yet. And it's going to be a difficult task. There's going to be a lot of heartbreak in it. This is something I've been warned about by people who are already working with Romani people. There'll be heartbreak. It'll be tough. It'll be really difficult. But God, with everything, everything is possible with God. And so pray for us. Pray for God to open the doors for us to meet people and for opportunities and just to give us overall discernment. And, I'm excited to see what this next year is going to be, working with Romani people. I'm excited to see, I maybe even hear stories about what people around here will do to reach the unseen. And so, guys, can I pray with us? Yeah? Okay. Dear God, we just thank you so much that we could be here today. We thank you for just all the ways that you're working in Cedar Rapids and Croatia. We thank you for all of the people that you're touching and that you're the people who you're seeking out. God, help us to be your hands and feet. Help us to have the eyes and the ears to hear and to really see the people who society pushes aside. Help us to see the people who you love and help us to be the ones to show them your love. God, I just thank you so much, again, that we could be here and that we could gather here. We just love you and we praise you. And in Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle, for sharing that with us and for sharing your mission, for your stories about the people you've meeting and the needs and things that they have. Such a very heartbreaking story of all those people. And so we just pray that God will continue to bless everything you're doing over there and the people you're working with, that they will continue to do God's work. This is Jesus in action. This is what Jesus would do. Jesus would help those who are in need. He would understand that they needed somebody to talk to them, to help them, and to provide for them. So this is a great thing that she's doing over there. She left some prayer cards back on the table back there where the mission stuff is. So if you want to pick one of those up, it'll tell you a little bit of information about her. I think there's a web address there as well that you can get a little more information. So feel free to be able to go back there and grab some of those. I think she might have a few more if they disappear, so we can get more for you to run out. Thank you so much for being here this morning, for being a part of this, and we just pray that you'll have a great day. Moms, thank you so much for all you're doing. You're dismissed.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Speak to my weary heart, strengthen my broken parts.